It's interesting that the money laundering issue, the tax evasion issue, fraud, those topics are colliding. And I think for us, the financial crime market is therefore becoming more complex. The financial crime agenda has never been more relevant, and again, it offers us great opportunity to add value to our clients.
The financial crime market is evolving because there are so much more companies who actually offer services related to financial crime. But we shouldn't also forget that the financial crime market originally has been established by criminals. And the way they do their business is also evolving. The flow of money across the globe changes, and we have to adapt to that.
Of course, one would say that all crimes are old. The question is how they are reinvented and reperformed in new ways, in new channels, with different forms of technology. Today, everything is accessible from around the world in an instant, meaning that while it bears convenience for customers and opportunities for financial institutions, it also imposes new risks.
We have to do something different. The traditional methods that have been applied over the last 20 years are not working. My view is that we need to join the dots more on intelligence and data and information so we get better insights into criminal activities. And that means breaking down borders, sharing data, joining the dots, and using tech to find those insights to then be able to go after these criminal syndicates.
The cost of financial crime compliance is almost getting out of hand. And it's getting out of hand partly because it's not actually stopping the financial crime that it should. The other thing is that the customer expectations, the society expectations that we've got to deal with some of these ills like human trafficking, like fraud, like exploitation by big corporates. All those things create a backdrop against which we've got big technology disruption. We have huge volumes of data, we have huge amounts of move towards automation, and of course the promise of cognitive. All of those disruptors against the society expectations that we need to do a better job means that we're right at the crossing over of a chance for the industry to change how it addresses financial crime. There's a spirit behind the regulations which I think society embraces. Millennials particularly are expecting that their corporates and their banks are going to be doing all they can to stop some of the ills of society, which unfortunately financial crime is the method through which they're perpetrated. So I think the expectations are much greater than ever before. Lots of regulations are saying we must do better as an industry in finding this stuff. At the same time, you've got to be really careful with the data you use. Well, at some point, you've got to decide how that balance is struck, and that's not going to be straightforward.
Regulators in some of the countries are not as sophisticated as the clients are. So some of the regulators don't appreciate how AI or technology can actually be very effective in the use against financial crime. So the regulatory framework, I guess, does not allow in all instances for the use of very sophisticated technology. So we should educate the market and the regulators to help them understand the benefits of it.
Major companies operating in many markets, they're finding there's new anti-bribery legislation in France or in Brazil or now in Australia. So the real challenge, I think, is getting a strategic sort of roadmap to actually then manage the regulatory pressures, the right resources, and prioritizing the tasks.
Financial service companies will set targets to sell X amount of product, but they do it at any cost. So they want to sell, if they're cutting corners, if they're doing illicit activity, if they're taking on suspicious accounts, if they're supporting terrorism, sometimes a blind eye is turned to that in the interest of making profits. And that cultural balance needs to shift now. And people need to realize that there's a good social reason why we're doing this. It shouldn't be all about making profit.
Regulated entities need to consider new components, new ways of payment, so we are very connected. These connections and this level of connectivity poses significant challenges, and the way organizations look to manage financial crime will be considered a way which they will either succeed or they will find themselves with issues and tackling significant challenges.
I think from a solution standpoint, where Oracle I think is well positioned is to allow, some of its heightened risk solutions to actually look into AML or money laundering or fraud, much quicker than you used to. When you have someone, who's using a phone, for example, you're not face to face with a client, and that actually incurs more risks. And where we can help is definitely, change the perspective of the bank and help them actually tackle those newer risks or different risks, in a different way that we used to in the past.